Hello everyone and welcome back to the Aftermath series. Oh man, this 2 weeks dragged on, but we are finally back. But before we get into the episode, there's just a couple things that I want to talk about. First being, I apologize for being a day late on this video. My headspace has just been filled and chaotic these past couple weeks, and so I did miss the episode that aired Thursday, so I watched it a day late, which is why this video is a day late. I do apologize for that. And now the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I am still looking for a talented writer who is passionate about Critical Role to help me with a project I'm working on. I will leave a link to my Twitter down below where you can DM me there, or simply leave a message in the comment section below. And now, without further ado, let us dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. And this episode was just filled with so many heartwarming moments. But before we get into those, let's talk a little bit about the Queen, the Luxon, and the interesting situation the Mighty Nine have gotten themselves into. So some of you might remember in my last Aftermath episode, I talked a little bit about what this beacon in the Luxon might be. I had proposed that perhaps the dodecahedron is actually the Luxon, and I was partially right. We now know that the dodecahedron is an aspect of the Luxon, a mere piece of a grand puzzle. And given the conversation that was had in this scenario, we do also now know what this dodecahedron is capable of. Again, we already kind of knew. We knew that the dodecahedron made babies, but that was kind of like a bare bones look on it, I guess. The dodecahedron essentially houses the souls of the consecuted so that they don't pass on to the next plane of existence. Instead, they stay within the dodecahedron, and then once a suitable body comes forth, the soul enters that, and then they continue their life as their memories come back to them. An interesting concept which explains how the dynasty has been able to last so long. They just retain all of the knowledge of their ancestors because, well, most of them are still their ancestors, if that makes any sense. But because they need fresh bodies, and when I mean that, I mean like children or babies, that, well, explains why the Zoroastrians were stealing the young and the babies from the Empire. I guess they needed vessels. I'm still not sure the actual process that takes place. Did they have to kill the babies first to make it an empty vessel? Or does the soul that resides in the dodecahedron simply push the soul within the child away? Does it get consumed? What happens to the soul of the child? I think the answer to that question will allow us to see just how brutal the dynasty might actually be. Because right now they do seem like the good guys, at least from our perspective, but Ford did make an interesting point towards the end of the episode where he said that the people that are helping them through this of the dynasty are going to be feeding them every bit of propaganda to make them seem like the good guys. And that is most likely the case. Why would you paint yourself in a bad light? So while the Mighty Nine do seem to be on the good side of the dynasty, they do still need to tread lightly because who knows what goes on behind the scenes. But let's talk a little bit about the dynasty's belief surrounding this Luxon and your soul being reincarnated into these various vessels. So the dynasty seeks to obtain a perfect soul through this sort of reincarnation, which parallels extremely well with Hinduism. Hinduism also believes in reincarnation and obtaining a perfect soul. And also because the Luxon has bestowed upon the people of Xhorhas the abilities of dunamancy, the power to sort of control time and space, the Dark Elves have found a way to break the bonds that the gods have put on them and take control of their own destiny. And this is something that the Queen felt very strongly about. She wants to see a world where everyone's chains are broken and everyone has control over their destiny. Everyone has this power that the dodecahedron was giving the Mighty Nine. But there's a lot of issues with that. If everyone can control that, two people are arguing, maybe someone throws a punch, it connects, but then someone uses that power of dunamancy to reverse the effect, but then the other person uses their power to reverse that effect. So it just creates this weird situation where if everyone has this ability, then it's just total chaos. There would have to be some very strict rules and laws, ways of detecting people that are using it, or else it would just be complete and utter anarchy. The Queen also sees the world where everyone works together, using these powers for, well, I guess the greater good in their eyes. But for someone who's lived 1200 years, that seems like a very naive way of thinking. She must feel pretty confident in herself that she would be able to get everyone to go along with her way of thinking. The only way for that to happen is if it turned into a dictatorship and she started, well, killing off the non-believers and the people who didn't see her way. So again, while the dynasty looks like the good guys right now, there are a few avenues that we don't know all the information about that may lead us to believe that there are some very dark things happening behind closed curtains in the dynasty. But back to this idea of breaking the chains from the gods, since they see the gods as controlling the people of Exandria, controlling the people of the world. Now, who do we know that is being sort of controlled by an entity? That's right, Ford is being sort of controlled by his patron. Now, I would think that Ford would find interest in breaking these chains. So perhaps while the Mighty Nine resides in Xhorhas, he may try to talk to the upper-ups and try to figure out how he can break these chains. Maybe Ford could become consecuted. I do personally think he may seek this out as an option to get out of the clutches of Uk'otoa. And now on the flip side, we have Caduceus Clay, who does believe in destiny. He does strongly believe that the gods have paths set for us, set paths that we must follow. But he doesn't see that as a bad thing. He thinks everyone has a purpose, and our purpose is that the gods have set this path. The gods see the grand picture of everything, and they know what needs to be done. And Caduceus is completely okay with that. So it'll be interesting to see if he has any sort of an internal monologue, or if he sort of butts head or clashes with any of the people within Xhorhas. And now moving topics slightly, through the Shadow Hand, we do now know that the term prodigy refers to someone who is on their first life, but who is consecuted, so that they will begin to live through many lifetimes. Now, the word prodigy, we have heard that before in the notes that the Mighty Nine found in Felderwin, in the basement of the Bernardo Apothecary. It talked about how Trent Ickathon had found some prodigies of Dunamancy. Now, that could just mean that he found people who were gifted in Dunamancy, or the Cerberus Assembly knows a little bit more about the dodecahedron than we originally thought. It's possible that they do know that the elves can continue on their life through different vessels and bodies and transcend lifetimes and live seemingly forever. It's possible they do already know this, and so the prodigies that they found are people that are already consecuted, and they are trying to extract that essence from them. I suppose the only way to find out is to locate the Cerberus Assembly and try to find these so-called prodigies. But let's not worry about that right now. And of course, we had the reunion of Yeza and Veth, an absolutely heart-touching, heart-warming, beautiful moment of two lovers reuniting and embracing and seeing each other again. Just a wonderful, wonderful moment that I'm glad we could all share together. It was just so nice to see Yeza just completely accept Veth for what she looks like and what she is, because all that matters is what's on the inside. A wonderful sentiment to have. But hopefully now with this reunion, hopefully Nott, or Veth, can now start feeling better about herself, since not even the love of her life cares about what she looks like. So maybe Nott can start to come to terms with the current form that she's in. Of course, she will still want to revert to her original form, but maybe now she can start to deal with it for the time being. And now, moving on to a new topic, Caleb seemed a bit different this episode. He had sort of a new drive, a new ambition. There was like this newfound confidence within him, but it was sort of dark in a way, because he wants revenge on the Cerberus Assembly. He wants certain people dead, and it sort of aligns with what the Mighty Nine hope to accomplish, but Bo seems to be worried that he's going to be sort of blinded by this want for vengeance. And it was clear with how Caleb was phrasing certain things that he is out for blood. He seems to be tapping into his younger self. And, well, the obvious reason for this sort of rekindled fire within Caleb is because, as he said, things that were impossible a week before are now possible now because of their alliance with the dynasty. So it makes sense that Caleb wants to go full steam ahead to try to take down the Cerberus Assembly. He feels like he can actually get his revenge on the people that ruined his life, the people that made him murder the ones he loved. All of it is now possible in his eyes. So now that's all he wants to do, that's all he wants to focus on. And Bo is trying to reel him back in, trying to make him slow down a bit and think about the bigger picture, think about what he wants, what he really wants, and how he hopes to achieve it. Because as Caleb did say, he wants to bend reality to his will. And it seems like he's forgotten that he's mentioned that to Bo. And so, because they are in alliance with the dynasty, perhaps Caleb can begin to learn just how to do that. But the episode was wrapped up nicely with a conversation between Bo and Caleb where they sort of discussed this whole situation, and Caleb expressed his desire to take down the people that ruined his life, and Bo, again, trying to sort of talk some sense into him, make him fully realize what he wants. And we did finally see Caleb express his sort of concerns and his admiration towards the party and Bo herself. It's so interesting, these two characters who are rather stoic in their ways and don't show too much emotion have finally, expressed it to each other at the very least. Bo has expressed her feelings towards Jester, but again, Jester, being who she is able to sort of extract that information from people just because of her nature and how lovable and caring and warm and welcoming she is, and she just puts people at ease. But with Bo and Caleb, they've got some walls that they put up, especially for each other, and now those walls are finally breaking down, and Bo even finished the conversation out with a hug. So again, just another really heart-touching moment where Bo is basically saying, we're in this together, we care about each other, let's not mess things up, and let's kick some ass and do some good. But with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know what you guys think of this episode. What were your thoughts and emotions throughout all of the events that transpired? I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.